style of play podcast episode something. Kojo here. I'm your host, joined of course by Basil. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good.
Good. I can see that smile on your face. And I know why you're smiling like that. So we'll go straight to that. Liverpool are out of the Champions League after losing to Paris Saint-Germain on penalties. The penalties missed by Darwin Núñez and Curtis Jones were the ones that cost Liverpool, and Desiree Doué put the tie to bed with a very good penalty. But over the course of the two legs, are we talking about a deserved winner in PSG?
100% deserved win over the course of the two legs. I mean, PSG actually didn't play that well yesterday compared to the first leg. There were spells where yesterday was a funny game because if you look at the first leg, it was just complete dominance by PSG. If you look at the second leg yesterday, Liverpool started very, very fast. Even I was worried for PSG. I mean, they pressed them. PSG didn't know how to handle the press. They had a few early chances, and PSG started getting control of the game and then scored the goal. Then there was a drop-off from PSG once again in the second half. I guess Liverpool kind of fixed up after kind of having a talking to in the changing rooms. And then Liverpool kind of dropped off again, and then PSG took control. I was a bit disappointed with PSG's decisiveness. I think people have got a bit carried away with PSG. I was a bit disappointed with their decisiveness in that final third. And obviously people are saying, "Oh yeah, they're favourites." I'm like, no, that could cost them into the latter rounds because you have teams who are very decisive in that final third. Barcelona is one of them. Real Madrid is another one of them. Bayern Munich is one of them. And I was like, PSG can't operate how they've operated over the two legs against Liverpool and think they're going to beat those teams. Because you saw Real Madrid even last in the final when they played Dortmund. Dortmund had all the chances in that first half. And then it was Real Madrid who hit them for two goals, who hit them. I think they won 2-3-0 in the end.
Yes.
But it was Real Madrid that the chance came, they took it, and you kind of saw how devastating it was for Dortmund. So PSG need to fix up in terms of the decisiveness in that final third because they should have killed that game and they didn't. But I was very impressed with how they controlled the game. That's what I would say with PSG.
Yeah, no, they were very impressive with how they marshaled Liverpool so well. I mean, especially Mendes. Yeah. No difficulty with Salah whatsoever. That was an incredible performance. When the Champions League draw came across, I think a lot of people pretty much bet on Liverpool to win. But I think what people have forgotten about PSG now, even though they're still not my favourites to win the Champions League, but having lost Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe in the space of 3 years, they've been allowed to now build what I think is more of a cohesive unit. So rather than the focus being on those three or one individual, depending on the time period at PSG, they've been able to build what looks like a more cohesive front line. Yeah. They've got a very good base in the midfield. The defense is strong, and I'm not a big Donnarumma fan, but he was actually very good over the 2 days.
Yeah.
Looking at how PSG performed, how do you look at them right now in terms of their chances?
I think it's the same. It hasn't changed. I don't understand pundits. A lot of pundits now are wavering and now saying, "Oh, they're the favourites. I'm like, you weren't saying this before. What? Because they're beating Liverpool, and this is what is it? It comes down to English bias. Because a team beats an English team, it's like, all of a sudden they're a favourite because they beat an English team. No, European football is completely different to Premier League football. Just because a team dominates English football doesn't mean they're going to dominate Europe. Because in Europe, teams don't sit back. Teams have a lot better quality on the ball. And teams are going to attack you. That's why City have struggled in the Champions League for so many years. And during that period, I've only won the title once. When people are talking about them as the best team in the world, they've only won it once during that period. It's a different kettle of fish. For me, my opinion on PSG hasn't changed. I did think PSG before, even when they were drew, would beat Liverpool because they were coming into that good space. They were coming into good form coming into that game. So I actually had PSG winning that tie. I think PSG will go on to the semis because I think they'll beat either team, whether it's Bruges or Aston Villa. And then it's who they get in the semi-final. Potentially could get into the final depending on who's there, but I don't put them as favourites. I put the two Spanish clubs ahead of them in terms of Real Madrid and Barcelona as favourites ahead of them. Then you could potentially talk about PSG being third. But at the same time, you can't discount there's a team which is going way under the radar, which people haven't paid attention to, who are tactically, who their manager has got them tactically well-versed in competition, Inter Milan. No one is even giving them any. No one's paying them no attention. But then when you look at it, I think they've only conceded like 1 goal so far, or they've barely conceded any goals in the Champions League. They've been tactically astute in the Champions League, and so they're dark horses because. Yeah, they're dark horses. So people have kind of discounted Inter Milan. And what will happen is the usual. Inter Milan may make their ways into a semi-final, and then people all of a sudden, oh yes, we'll start praising them and saying that. But pay attention to these teams early on. Inter Milan potentially could be a dark horse in this competition.
I think that's just because, well, not just because, but there's an arrogance, obviously, about the Premier League. Obviously, you mentioned it. Liverpool being top of the table, to the form that Salah was in, I think they sort of don't imagine another team being able to go toe-to-toe with them. But then, even the PSG team, I look at when I saw the midfield in the first leg when they showed Vitinha and Jean Neves, I was like, if anyone hasn't paid attention to these two, these are top midfielders. McAllister, Szoboszlai, whoever else you want to point at midfield, they're going to have a tough day. And they had a very tough day. Those two ran the show. And then in terms of Inter Milan, I mean, I still get time to watch Serie A. I watch the Premier League through a Canadian service, and they got Serie A football there as well. So I get to dabble in there. You're so right about Inter Milan. And the thing about Serie A is obviously because it's been sort of chewed up a spat out by many people across the world because they feel like which I think there's credit to saying that the standard has dropped over the years. Obviously, the great AC Milans, Inter Milan teams, Juventus teams, they don't compare now. But it doesn't mean the league is completely.
I'll make a big claim once you finish your
okay. Doesn't mean the standard is completely in the toilet. And you go over the years. I mean, yes, there's not many Italian teams that have made Champions League finals, but there's still Champions League teams that have made Champions League finals. Juventus made it with Mandzukic and co.
AC Milan made it.
Inter made it against City not too long ago. Like, you know,
Atlanta won the Europa League last season. So
there you go. So you can't discredit these leagues. So no, that's a good shout. But what's your
here's the thing. So I'll say this and then make my claim. So first, people discounted Inter still top of the table. Is a tight three-way battle for the league. I think there's like 3 points between Inter, Napoli, and Atlanta. But give them credit, they're top of the table. They're not there for no reason. They've done extremely well in the Champions League group stages, and obviously good victory yesterday. So they're through to the quarters, but playing Bayern Munich, I believe they're playing. But I'll say this: what people don't realize, I think the Italian league is next up to challenge the Premier League. But I've said this for a number of years. The big issue the Italian league need to sort out is their marketing. And the reason why the Premier League is where it is because of the competitive nature in the Premier League. Obviously, they make a lot of money because they've always branded it as the Premier League, not just one or two teams, the Premier League.
Yeah.
And its competitive nature is what get eyes into watching the Premier League. The Italian league is highly competitive. This is what people, it may not have the same quality or excitement as the Premier League, but it's highly competitive. And it's been like that for a number of years. And I've always said what lets the Italian league down is its marketing. Because it has the competition. It can market as you've got Inter, AC Milan, if they get that together. Napoli are there, Atlanta's there, Lazio will be there, Juventus will be there. Roma are in great form at the moment, and Roma could be there. So they have like a number of teams that they can kind of mark and say, hey, here's our Italian product. We have all these great historic clubs. It's competitive. They just need to get their marketing strategy correct. And I think if they get that correct, they are the league to rival the Premier League because it isn't just one team dominate. I mean, long gone are the days where Juventus dominated, and I think they won like 7 titles in a row.
Yeah.
Long gone are those days. It's competitive now, so they can if they market back properly, they can try and go toe to toe with the Premier League. So they need to just get that marketing correct, draw in those, and obviously start to get in more players. Get in and also focus on the youth, because if you start to get some of the youth and talented players in your league and you start to market, we've got these exciting new players, you can market that. But I think the Italian league is next up because of how competitive it has been over the last few years. Atlanta's there, Inter's there, AC will be there, Juventus is there, Lazio is there, sometimes Roma could be there. So I think they're next up because you don't have the dominance of a Bayern in Germany. You don't have usually is a 2-club dominance in Spain with Atletico Madrid kind of competing, then maybe dropping off for a season or two and then competing again. You kind of have it's always 6 or 7 teams are always there at the beginning, and then as it goes down, it may whittle down to maybe 3 or 4. Now there's still 3 teams in it where there's 3 points between those 3 teams. And if you market that properly, you get eyes onto it. They just need to focus on that.
No, I don't think that's a bad shout, to be honest. I mean, I watched it. I get to watch the league, so I'm not against that. I think marketing is a key thing. I think with obviously La Liga do 2 teams, or I say 3 teams. Atletico are part of that sort of group, but the names Real Madrid and Barcelona carry so much weight. That's the problem. And this era of football that we're in so far, they've had 2 of the most dominant names that also aids their, and then obviously Real Madrid now added Mbappe to their rank and Vinicius. So it's a bit tough when it comes to that discussion of what's the bigger league. But when it comes to better, Serie A do compete, and they've got very good teams there. And when people hear title race and it's tight, sometimes I think they shudder to think like, that does that mean that the quality is good or great? And my thing is, if I watch the Premier League now, there are teams where go dominant, they go on to win the league by this many points and this many points, but where I feel like Premier League was affected is the sudden need for all teams, including I always refer back to Stoke when Stoke started to change their brand of football to force a certain type of brand of football, and also it's the money that's to get sort of thrown around in the Premier League, like the money, because the ownership rules are also very different to Serie A or La Liga, so you can come and buy a club and splash how you want. Obviously, different rules coming in is different, but regardless, once you're in the Premier League, the money that's brought into the club is outstanding. So that's where the other teams struggle. But to the point that we made, Atalanta have just won a European trophy. And, Inter Milan were in the Champions League final not too long ago, and they've progressed again. And you said they've been pretty much flawless. So no, it's not a bad shout at all. And I think you're right. So
honestly, it wouldn't surprise me, and I'll say this: it would not surprise me if Inter Milan make that final. And I'll say this: I have them favourites to beat Bayern Munich in the quarter.
Okay.
And I think they can hurt Barcelona, because Barcelona, the issue, and I don't know why Hansi Flick persists with this, that high line is so damaging to them. Like what Barcelona get away with is that they are so technically supreme. It's still the same Barcelona where possession-wise or keep possession, they have great intricate play in that final third. But that high line, because I was watching that Benfica game yesterday, and Benfica just didn't really have anything in attack to hurt them. And I sat there and thought, if they play any decent team who are just clinical and on it on the day, that high line is going to hurt them. It's just that Barcelona are just so formidable in controlling possession and attack, they can get away with it. But I sit there and think, how long can you really get away with this, to be honest?
But that would be an interesting clash.
Because the issue is that what people don't realize, Barcelona don't defend properly in defense when they have that high line. They don't defend properly. It's just that one, they press well, and then one day they press well, and then secondly, what you find is because their fullbacks bomb on so much. With that high, it's so damaging with that high line, because if you don't have a winger that tracks back, or you have people who counter who transition on the other way, there's so many gaps. And it happened yesterday so much where Koundé bombed on, they lose the ball, but that line is so high. Benfica are on the attack. Benfica were picking the wrong passes, or weren't making the right decisions with the ball. I thought to myself, you can't do that against the bare teams, because if they're bare quality up front, they're going to absolutely hurt you. But then can you stop them on the other side when they have Rafinha and Yamal in form?
Those two are ridiculous. Who have Barcelona potentially got next?
So they've got Lille or Dortmund. So that's why I think Barcelona will make the semi.
I'm writing that off already, to be quite frank. Okay. Back to the Liverpool game. So after the game, Henry was obviously doing the analysis with CBS, and he mentioned about Salah's Balon d'Or chances. Now, obviously, it was a conversation where a couple of weeks ago, his co-host or co-analyst, I should say, Carragher, was talking about why Salah might not win the Balon d'Or because of not counting the African Cup of Nations with it, but you need the Champions League, yada yada. Well, no Cup of Nations, and certainly now no Champions League. Even if Salah does win the league and does break the 2020 on record with the goals and assists, he's passed it in goals already. He's close on the assist record. Even if he does break it with the Premier League, considering the form of Rafinha, someone even Dembele, I wouldn't put Dembele on top of my list for Ballon d'Or, but
He's got 20, he's got 29 goals.
Exactly.
No,
And
I think 30 now after yesterday's goal.
And 21 of those goals, or now 22 actually, yes, 22 of those goals has come this year, which is ridiculous.
It's insane, yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. Considering the form of other teams are going for title rate in their title races and still in the competition, it's just damaged his chances of winning the Balon d'Or.
It definitely does, because the criteria has never changed. I mean, it's like an unwritten criteria. Generally, they're going to favor whoever wins the Champions League. And the thing is that whoever wins the Champions League will most likely win their league. And I say most likely potentially win their league title.
Right.
Even though Spain is not a foregone conclusion, because there's 3 points between Madrid, Atletico, and Barca. With Barca still their game in hand, there's 3 points between those teams currently. So, and yeah, they've always kind of favoured whoever wins Europe. Apart from last year, because there was a European tournament, it kind of favoured Rodri because Spain won that.
Yeah.
They've never really, unless the team who wins in the Champions League never really had a standout player, then they won't look as to, okay, individually, who has had like the standout statistics that has led them there. Yeah. So generally, it will probably go to the individual or to an individual of the team who wins the Champions League. So if Real Madrid win the Champions League, I envisage it'll probably go to Mbappe. Even though Vinny's having a good season, I think Mbappe's numbers are better than Vinny so far. Right. So, I mean, because I know some people may think, Omri was saying that potentially Real Madrid win it, could they give it to Vinny to kind of right the wrongs of what happened, of giving it to Rodri, which they potentially could do, which I think potentially could be a travesty if they go down that road, because then it kind of puts the whole thing to a disrepute. So I think if Madrid win it, will be out of Vinny and Mbappe. I'll probably lean more to Mbappe. If Barcelona win it, I think Rafinha deserves it more, because he's been the most consistent and performing player at Barcelona. They may lead to Yamal just from a branding perspective, potentially. So it will be up. And then if PSG win it, it will not surprise me if they give it to Dembele for the final third of the season he has. And then you're talking about the only way Salah, I don't think Salah will have a chance because they've gone out so early. But the only way you kind of don't consider a team who wins the Champions League is potentially if Bayern or a team like Inter Milan win it. Because I think if any of those clubs win it, I don't think they will consider any of their players. That's how I feel.
I think they'd consider two.
Go on. I probably know the names you're going to say, but go on.
Kane and Martinez. Those would be the two.
I thought you mentioned his name. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they will. Just because the reason why I say that is because I think. Yeah, I don't know if they will. Just because I look at they like same issue Salah will have, because the Bundesliga is not competitive. I don't think they'll consider, because he hasn't been. I mean, he scored goals, but he hasn't been sparkling in the Champions League.
Yeah,
he hasn't really been sparked. So I think they'll probably look and say, well, he hasn't done anything spectacular. And in the Bundesliga is like, well, they say you should win the Bundesliga because it's not competitive. Same as Martinez. I think they just want to consider him just because he's not like he's not a sparkling. He's not like that. What I'm trying to think. Well, he's not that A-star listed name like an So that's what I think. They may not even consider them if they win the Champions League. But then the big issue you have is that, well, if they win a Champions League, I want to win a Champions League in the league, and they don't win a Ballon d'Or, that will just create so much issues in terms of, because if you thought what Real Madrid did was bad when they knew it was going to be awarded to Rodri, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, no, but that's the point though, isn't it? Like, imagine. Like, Harry Kane scores a bundle of goals, and he generally just plays well for Bayern in general. His performance for Bayern yesterday was ridiculously good. The way he was spraying passes, his assist for Alphonso Davies, the goal he scored, like he was incredible, and he's probably had an incredible season. But it's what you said, and is what we were talking about with similar to Serie A. It's how Bundesliga is viewed now. Obviously, correctly so, unless you have like the odd Wolfsburg season in 2011 or Dortmund season with Klopp or Bayer Leverkusen, who actually literally got unbeaten to go and win the league last year. It's going to be a Bayern Munich trophy. But that shouldn't take away if he wins the Champions League as well. They shouldn't do that, but they will. and that's the problem. But if Barcelona win the league and the Champions League, who is it out of Rafinha and Yamal?
For me, it has to be Rafinha. He has been, as much as Yamal's been good, he's been their best player. And not like best player in terms of performances, best players in terms of assists, best player in terms of goals. His stats also back it. All you need to do is watch him to see how good he's been for Barca. But then if you check his stats, it also backs it up. So Rafinha's the more deserving out of the two. But then, like I said, it would not surprise me if they push for Yamal to win it, just because they see he's the next superstar that they kind of want to put at the forefront of football. And for me, that would just be tragic if they did, because it's like you can't perform the way Rafinha's been performing and then be overlooked.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think Rafinha's been literally their match winner for the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be poor to not give it. The person I would feel sorry for a little bit is Robert Lewandowski, solely because not that he's had an incredible season. Don't get me wrong. I think he's had a good season.
When they robbed him in the COVID era, which was ridiculous. Honestly, that for me, that does not get talked about enough.
Joke.
Because there was no reason for them not to host that ceremony. There was no reason for them not to walk, because it's like, well, people finish their seasons. So you can still judge a person as to what happened during that year.
Bro, if Messi or Ronaldo had that year, they will still do the ceremony.
They will still do that ceremony.
Guaranteed.
Even if you didn't want to do a ceremony, give the guy then just do the votes and give the guy his award.
Give him the award. He'll get it at home. It's lockdown, fine. He'll celebrate at home, and then you can give him a celebration later on.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest travesties I've seen in football.
It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. That's what I feel sorry for. I kind of wish that he had an incredible season by his standards this season, just because he deserves to at least grab that trophy and walk away with it. That year was. It's very unfair to him. Very unfair. Yeah. But all right, so they're out. Just before we do continue, let's get the games for today. Now, that's a stupid question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Who goes through out of Arsenal and PSV?
Hey, listen, if PSV go through, I will never watch football again for the next 2 years. I will never watch football again for the next 2 years. We go through. Now, Arsenal will go through.
You'll be
I think it'll definitely be a boring game. I don't think Arsenal. I think Arsenal will be slow on the ball and just take no risks and won't look to do anything. So I genuinely think it'll be a boring game. And even if Arsenal score, I think they'll take their foot off the gas so much just to kind of conserve energy and everything. So Arsenal will go through, but I can't see it being entertaining game. So if anyone's watching, I'll say don't waste your time watching Arsenal today. Watch the Madrid game or one of the other games. You'll be far more entertained.
Yeah, I agree with that. Lille, Dortmund.
So tough. I'm just gonna go Lille.
I agree. I agree.
I'm just gonna go Lille.
I agree. Villa are 3-1 up against Bruges. Would they go through?
I've got Bruges going through.
Oh, you think there's gonna be a capitulation?
The reason why I say that, I think Villa are such a Jekyll and Hyde. Here's the thing: like people forget, Bruges had a few chances before Villa got their second goal, so they could have scored a second. I think Villa are so Jekyll and Hyde. And it hasn't been this season. Also been last season when they were playing in which competition were they playing in last season? Was it the Europa League last season?
I think it was the Europa League last year.
Yeah, and if you watch the game that they got knocked out for, I think they got knocked out by. I think it was one of the Ukrainian teams. I believe they got knocked out by. They were shocking, and Villa have been like that this season. Villa have not been consistent this season, and they can throw up those games. They always give teams an opportunity. So I personally got Bruges going through. I think Bruges will score an early goal, and then they'll make a game of it. So I've got Villa. I've got Bruges going through.
That would be interesting. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind. I don't care. I'm not saying I care about Villa. I don't care about Villa.
I know you think we got Villa going through, but I'm going Bruges.
I've got Villa going through because I just don't think they would capitulate to that extent. But if they do, no thing. Thing is, for me, all I want is Rashford to just keep doing well. So either one or two things happens. Either one, we laugh at Man United fans who kept on cussing him out, or two, we get a good fee for him, and that's it. So either way, I win. And finally, the Madrid derby second leg. I think Madrid are 2-1. Real Madrid are 2-1 up, correct?
Yeah. Real Madrid are 2-1 up.
Now,
I'm rooting for Atletico.
But
not for any reason, because I don't have a preference as to which team I think both teams cause us so much problems. But I like Atletico, and I really do want Simeone to do well. So I'm going Atletico. I think that's more my heart rather than my head. My head definitely says Real Madrid, but I think my heart is saying Atletico. So I'm going to go Atletico.
Yeah, well, for me, my cast stays the same. When it comes to Champions League, I only have a bet on one side. It's Real Madrid, no matter what. But it's intriguing because anyone that's kept an eye on La Liga, it seems like them, Barcelona, so those two clubs in Barcelona, every time a team goes top, they drop points. They lose form. Yeah. It's very weird. And Real Madrid being on top in this tie so far, it's nowhere against the odds that Atletico go and give them a hiding. It's possible. It's very possible. So it's going to be an entertaining game. My eyes will definitely be fixed on that game for sure. So that's a must watch. Now, away from the pitch to outside the pitch. For anyone that has been living under a rock, Manchester United are building a new stadium. And they are aiming for it to be built by 2030. And if there are any delays, they've kind of put that in mind that if there are any delays, the furthest they'll go back to is 2032. So you're talking about a 5 to 7 year project. 100k seater stadium. What looks like a big kind of net around the stadium. I don't know what that's supposed to be. Apparently 90k new jobs, 20,000 new houses. They have come into agreement with the government. Andy Burnham, who is a local Manc, I don't know what team he supports though. Obviously good for the area. It's good for him and his resume being an MP. And the agreement is that Manchester United, or I believe it to be Ineos anyway, are footing the bill. And the government have been given permission by the club, because the club owned that land, to build new houses and so on that land. So with that being said, firstly, I'm sure you saw the video. I'm sure you saw the graphics and the pictures and everything else. Thoughts on the stadium?
I mean, of course it's going to be. Of course it's going to be a great stadium. Of course it's going to be the best stadium. Any new stadium that's being built will be a fantastic stadium. The only one I was looked a bit on the bone was the Everton one. When I saw it from the outside, I wasn't that impressed. And the reason why is because I remember when I went to Barcelona years ago, and I went to the stadium, and they were kind of showing the plans that they were doing for the stadium that they're currently working on now. And I thought, oh, that looked incredible. If you looked at what Real Madrid did, that looked incredible. What they're doing, that looks incredible. You've seen what Tottenham are doing. So it doesn't surprise me, because obviously we're now modern, so you can kind of modernize things and have your grand ideas. If this stadium gets built, for 100%, it'll be probably the best stadium in world football. And it should be the best stadium in world football, because it's the most modern one, or the most recent one built. So that's, I looked at it and I thought, okay, yeah, it definitely looks incredible. So we'll see what it looks like in the end. So yeah, like the idea. I mean, I know people. I'm not too sure about the nets. Well, why? But if I put that aside, it definitely looks like an incredible regeneration that they're looking to do, and an incredible stadium that they're looking to. And obviously, it's befitting of a club with the stature of Manchester United. It suits Manchester United to have those kind of grand ideas and that kind of stadium, because it's reflective of who Manchester United have been in the past.
Yeah, right. That's the key, innit? Have been. They've got a lot to build to try and sort of equal what you're building for them. You don't want it to be like a Spurs situation where they've built a brilliant stadium after the good work that Pochettino did. So they obviously thought they were the trajectory, but Daniel Levy and the ownership above him, they don't like to spend money and improve. So that's another issue for another day. It's gonna be a lovely stadium. Now, a lot of controversial sort of thoughts about it. I don't know how I feel about it. No, I like it. I like the stadium. I like the idea of the stadium coming in. We need a new stadium. The thing is, there's a lot of attachment to Old Trafford, as it would be for any club. I mean, when Arsenal fans were told they're leaving Highbury, I'm sure there was an air of upset by it, because Highbury is home. Same as remember West Ham when they were leaving Upton Park. Exactly. Oh, that one was, I remember, because I went to their final game at Upton Park, which was against Man United, and they beat Man United. But you could tell, even though they won, they were so happy that their final game at home was a win. As soon as the final whistle went, it was like, oh, we ain't gonna be here again. That's
no one really wanted to leave. Really any of the fans wanted to leave. So.
Exactly, it was devastating to them. And now you go there, it's apartments. The High Breed is now apartments. I don't know what Spurs White Hart Lane has become, but I don't think that stadium is there anymore. But actually, no, they built on that land actually, so that stadium just got replaced. That's why they went to Wembley, isn't it? Of course, so same thing for them. But no, it's needed. Man United need to move forward. That stadium has been on its last legs, partly because the Glazers have just not cared to fix anything in the stadium. And even that goes to the training facilities as well. So the Ineos are footing the bill for stadium and new training facilities. So we don't really agree with their practices of how they've lost people jobs and so on. But on the other side, it's not a but. I'm not trying to protect them. It's more they're trying to do the things that should have been done a long time ago. For the
Glazers, I think when you look, there's a few things. I think Ineos' strategy has been, obviously, it's the right thinking. You need to reduce your cost and make sure you control the spending at Manchester United. They've just done it incorrectly, because when you look at some of the cuts they're making and then the numbers you're saying, the numbers you're hearing, you're like, you can get that money elsewhere without having to make redundancies or reduce what people can eat in their canteens and those, because obviously when you look in the grand scheme, it's small change. And then secondly, you're talking about, well, when you consider what some of these players are earning, removing one player from the squad probably gets you those costs that you're looking to reduce. So then you kind of look at the stretch and say it's been harsh, but I just don't think they've evaluated it properly, which is also highlighted through the interviews that Ratcliffe has done. The interviews that he's done, but it's kind of, they've come in, they make quick snap decisions without thinking about without analyzing the bigger picture. And I also add this: the biggest winner in this is the Glazers, which for me is kind of criminal, because what they've done, if they sold a small percentage of the club to Ineos for a large amount of money, while still maintaining huge control and power of the club. And ultimately, Ineos are the one who are now having to, sort out things financially to make it profitable, to benefit the Glazers, and are now the one footing the bill for everything now, when you think about it. So the Glazers are like, oh, we've earned some money out of this, and we don't really have to deal with all the issues that have been there at Manchester United, because Ineos are now doing it at their expense. Because the fact that now, with all the money they paid, they're now having to spend another 2 billion or close to that on a whole regeneration program, which includes a new stadium. That's coming from Ineos and not from the Glazers. It's a win-win, because they've sold a stake, still maintain power, they've made money out of it, and then everything that needs to be fixed and sorted out is been done by Ineos.
Exactly that. And this is why, I know people have thoughts on how Gary Neville did the interview with Sir Jim, but he did make a good point at some point when he said, look, these guys have never put a penny into the club, and they've just been taking money out day by day. Why are you allowing yourself to take all the heat? Because you're basically taking the noise that they should be getting. That's what's happened. Like, we don't agree with what you're doing, but most of the noise you're getting is still from the work or lack of work that the Glazers have done. So why are you doing that? And he came on the whole thing about, I love Man United, but that's not a reason to foot everything. It doesn't make sense that you take all the flack.
I would say this at the same time, because I did have a friend with a word. I did have a conversation with a friend, and I said, you know what? Ultimately, if you earn obscene amounts of money, because the biggest issue you have with rich people is that sometimes rich people get rich and just want to get richer. And obviously, it's like, what can you really do with the money that you're earning? Because you've bought everything you need to buy, so you're just making money for the sake of making money. Ultimately, you kind of want to enjoy money and spend money on things you love. So then I was like, you know what? Well, if these companies have earned him a ridiculous amount of money, he's probably thinking, well, what am I going to do with this money? I'd rather spend it on the things I love. So ultimately, if he says he loves Manchester United, which he probably does, he's like, well, there's no better cause for me to spend my money on the club I love and making sure that we're back to where we need to be. and we're kind of, from a brand perspective and from a visual perspective, we look like we're a big club again. He's probably thinking, this money, what else am I going to use it for? It's like, probably I have my houses, I have my cars, I have my business, I have everything I need. I might as well spend it on the things I love and enjoy. So at the same time, I had a word, I was speaking to my friend, I thought, you know what? And I mentioned that to him, I thought, you know what, it's not, I know people ask, well, why is he spending the money? But I was like, well, if he's got so much money, why not spend it on things you like? To be honest. So then at the end of the day, people say, oh, I can't see the benefit in Spain. But I'm like, well, sometimes you don't need to see the benefit. If he wants Manchester United to get back and say, I've got a load of money, let me start spending it to fix things, hey, might as well.
Yeah, and look, fair, I mean, that's why it's partly of him being a successful businessman. This is a long-term investment. If 100%. They get this right, build the stadium and help Amorim and the club get back to where they want it to be, where they feel like it's supposed to be, and then with success,
your club will be laughing if you get your recruitment correct over the next 2-3 years.
Yeah,
and build a squad once again properly, which is befitting of Manchester United can compete, and then you get this stadium and this regeneration, you'll be laughing because the amount of money you can then generate.
Yes.
Because, like I said, people forget Tottenham. I think Tottenham have been the most profitable club in the Premier League over the last few years. That's also helped by the things that they can do within the stadium.
Yes.
In terms of gate receipts, in terms of some of the concerts they've been able to get there, even like with the F1 thing they have within the stadium. So all those commercial deals they're able to bring with that. And that's Tottenham, who haven't achieved anything.
Exactly, but that's without success. So
if Manchester United get the recruitment right and get the stadium in and the regeneration in, they're going to be absolutely laughing.
There you go. And that's what I feel like people are missing out on and not really understanding in their minds. It's not difficult to understand, but I think Man United fans are afraid of change. They still think Man United are the same Man United that was under Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill. They still think Man United are the top 5 teams in the land, where these players should be proud to wear the shirt and show a lot more of their quality. And they should be proud to wear the shirt. But the players that you bought, the players that you recruited, are just they're not good. And even the money you've spent, Man United used to be able to spend more money than Arsenal back in the day, or before Chelsea got the money, Chelsea back in the day, Liverpool. But it wasn't 30, 40, 50 million every summer. Veron came in, and then there was a break. And before that, 2 years earlier, was Rio Ferdinand. And then
it was only Rooney. It was only for those specific players, but then you're always smart, because Nani didn't cost much. Cristiano Ronaldo didn't cost much. Obviously, Berbatov cost much, but then Ruud van Nistelrooy didn't cost too much. Roy Keane didn't cost too much.
There you go.
Vidic didn't cost too much.
Yeah.
Evra didn't cost. So you're all like you would, when you needed to, you're like, hey, we can go and buy that marquee name for that signing. But then you're always smart with the rest of your recruitment. Like, we don't need to spend 30, 40 million. We can spend 15 million on this player because he's good enough, and then build him up. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why the expensive signings, I say, under Sir Alex Ferguson, bar Veron, were successful.
Yeah,
because
100%.
he brought them in for a reason. And that Veron not being successful doesn't mean he wasn't a great player. He was a phenomenal player. It just didn't work out in England for him.
Van der Sar was a great goalkeeper for you. Didn't cost too much when you signed him from Fulham.
Exactly. So that's the key here. That's the key here. Man United lost all that identity when they started spending ridiculous amount of money on players and making losses. So you have to move on and understand that your club has changed. But if you want to get back to its glory, you need to do the things that you're doing correct, as well as modernizing where the club is going to be. And staying in Old Trafford for another 15 years, it's not going to do that.
No, it's not. The only one I have for United, I guess, it's more potentially if Ineos are gonna commit so much money towards this regeneration plan. Obviously, we don't know yet, and we don't know yet the impact, but it's potentially how that impacts recruitment and recruitment budget. That's the only thing I would worry about for Manchester United if they're committed to this. How much of an impact will that have in terms of buying players if so much money is being committed towards such program? Maybe it's separate. Maybe they do have money set aside for recruitment and fixing the playing side, and then obviously this is additional funds or separate fund for the stadium. But obviously we don't know. We don't have any of that information yet.
Yeah. Well, we don't know, but they've hired the perfect manager for that. And when I say that, I'm not trying to say he's going to be a yes man. What I'm saying is, obviously, Sporting didn't have any financial power near the levels of Benfica or Porto even. So you're talking about other clubs, it's a joke. But his thing has always been signing players that meet his philosophy and have a good ceiling. So you'll find players that he probably identifies are not the players that you have in mind.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is he's going to have to hope that Man United have changed under this new sort of sporting regime. Anyway, it's not a full regime because Ineos don't own the club. Can try and move away from being forced to spend stupid amounts of money so he can actually improve the squad in areas. So no more 80 millions that are necessary. No more... Because you've got to spend 80 million, you need to buy someone with the quality of Musiala or Verts or those guys, not the guys that we spent money on. So, but either way, change is needed. It's happening, and I'm happy. So that's good. So let's just hope that they can flip and get this right. What I will say, and I want your thoughts on this. Yeah. So when they did get their 23 or so %, there was a clause in there that the Glazers, if they decide to sell their whole shares, Ineos get first refusal, which basically means they're not certainties to own the full club.
Yeah.
If the Glazers, which I don't think will happen, because imagine these guys are fixing problems for you, and then a whole new stadium regeneration. Even if they sold an extra 80%, no, that's too much. If they sold an extra 70%. To Ineos, they'll still make sure they have that little bit of shares there so they can make money. Don't never leave the club. Don't never leave the club. The only way to leave the club, in the words of Ghosts from Power, is if they all die. That's
it's the only way. It's the only way. But even then, they probably will have a contingency plan where it probably stays within the family.
There you go. So they'll never leave, which is a sad reality for me, but it is what it is. If the Glazers were to decide to sell, do you think they're going to look at Ineos as their buyers, or do you think they're going to maybe pull a fast one on them and try and get someone from that, maybe Qatar or something, that can give them a bundle of money even more?
Oh, they will, because remember, first refusal doesn't mean accepted. First refusal just means you can come in with your opening bid and we can negotiate with you first.
Yeah.
The Glazers they're going to go for whoever offers them the most money. And that particularly may not be Ineos. If they've miraculously decided to sell, like I said, if the Qataris come in and they say, hey, this is what we're going to offer and it's more than Ineos, they're going to accept whichever. Because as we know, the Glazers were only there for the money. And so if they're selling, they're going to look to maximize the amount of money they can make from a sale. So it's just basically whoever gives them the most money will claim the shares of the club. That's basically it.
Yeah, that's basically it, right. Intriguing times at Old Trafford, man. We're going to see what happens to United. But they got a game on Thursday as well against Sociedad. It was 1-1 in the first leg. To be honest, should have bagged them away in the first leg. But, all the good work went to toilet when we conceded the penalty. Quick thoughts on that game. Do you think United go through, or are we in for another Old Trafford shocker?
Yeah, I think in for another Old Trafford shocker. I think so. Honestly, I think Sociedad will go through, to be honest. United, I don't know about United. Honestly, this season has just been a write-off usually you can gain some confidence based upon how a team is playing. Because if you're playing well, you can lose games, and you can kind of say, you can kind of say, oh, as long as they put in a performance, they can get a result. But the things that United, I think you guys have only put in a performance maybe 5% of games this season. So because I can't even rely on United to put in a performance, I just think Sociedad will beat you guys, to be honest.
Well, my thought this season is United crumble at Old Trafford more than they do away.
I think they do crumble at Old Trafford more than they do away.
They can't handle the pressure. It's really weird but it's not weird. You hope that the fans will support. But again, this one I'm talking about different era. Even the so-called top Reds, old fans that think that they're number one, their attitude has changed towards the players as well. They don't understand. They're not as supportive through the tough times. There was a fan. I'm not going to expose him. I decided not to tweet. I thought, I'm just going to waste my time. But he, a couple of months ago, was talking about how he thought it was disgusting that the Arsenal fans had booed. I remember Abuwe came off the bench years ago. He had many mistakes that day. Got booed, and then he got taken off. And he said he didn't want to play again because he was
left the stadium immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This same individual about a month later, posting himself. He didn't put his face on, but he's at Old Trafford. He's in the stands, and he's one of the fans booing off Xerxes. I'm like, well done, mate. Yeah. Well done, you idiot, you idiot. You're just a hypocrite. But yeah, no, this is change that's needed. So hopefully they pull it off. And boy, if we're doing style of play in 2032, 2033, and I'm a happy boy, that'll make me good. Yeah, I've had enough of doing therapy sessions on podcasts, man. I'm tired of it. But yeah, that should be it.
Oh no, quick question. Because I don't think what are your thoughts on if you go back to the Salah Balon d'Or?
He's not winning it.
Okay. Here's my question: if Salah now now to the end of the season, let's say he scores 20 goals, and let's say now Salah scores 50 plus goals, do you think that also changed? Do you think that could be something that could sway people's thoughts?
It could sway it. It could definitely sway it. And if he was to do that, it would be hard for me to say he shouldn't win it because that would be insane.
Yeah.
However, I'll put it like this, and it's not to sort of dress up his whole season, because when Liverpool needed him in the league, he stepped up, he's done his thing, and that's why they're top of the table. Because he took away his goals, they're nowhere near the points and what they're doing. But this was a huge Champions League game. Huge.
Yeah, and he didn't turn up in both.
At all. He was locked up. And this is the thing we talk about with the players that we've praised in the past, that even if they have the worst of games by their standards, they just need a second. They just need a moment to change things. You can go. I'd have to mention Messi and Ronaldo. Even Rooney, that game where he scored a head kick, for 89 minutes of that game, he was shocking.
Yeah.
But he had a moment. But sometimes that's all you need. It's a moment. You know what I'm saying?
And I say it's unlucky because, like I said, there was a chance he had, which was Nunes was phenomenal in both legs. But there's a chance where he had, and obviously Nuno blocks it.
Yeah.
And obviously, you can say if he scores, it kind of changes. It kind of changes things.
But
and then there was one where he curled it just wide. But yeah, as you said, it's those moments. It's those fine lines between those moments.
That's it. And no one's going to sit there and say, you know what, if you had just scored this curler, you would have been closer to the Balon d'Or. You missed it, and that's the sad reality. It's not to criticize you. You're a phenomenal player. You've had a great career so far, but if you're going to win the Balon d'Or, they need you in these moments. And Barcelona played Benfica side that are not on the level of a Liverpool or PSG. But look at how Rafinha and Yamal stepped up immediately to put them to bed, and that's the difference. And if they go on to do it, whoever goes on to do it in the competition will have the same thing. That's why Madrid fans were very angry about Vinicius, because Vinicius has done it for them in the league, and when they've been to Champions League finals, when he's been there, he's scored the goals to win the game. So when he's not winning the Ballon d'Or, it makes sense for them to be angry, because what more does he need to do? You know,
they deserve to be angry for that.
Yeah.
If you go back to that argument again, I said this: Rodri was better the season beforehand. It wasn't as if like he was dominant in the league for City, because they just scraped the league title. Arsenal were top for majority in the early time. Arsenal went top is when they slipped up against Villa, which was like 3 to 4 games to go before the season. So you can't even say it was even sensational for City in the league. Obviously, they were knocked out. It was Real Madrid that knocked them out of the Champions League, right? They were knocked out by Real Madrid. There you go. Yep. And then obviously, like I said, even when they awarded him player of the tournament in the Euros, which I just thought was absolute nonsense.
Ludicrous.
Because I'm like, he was good, but he wasn't their best player. Dani Olmo was more effective and important for Spain. I mean, I said there was 3 players that performed better than Rodri in that tournament. Dani Olmo, Nico Williams, and Yamal. If those guys aren't there, Rodri's not winning Spain the Euros.
There you go.
So when they didn't award him, I was like, what are you awarding him the award for? He wasn't the best player for his national team in the competition. Yeah, they gave him player of the tournament, but that was more visuals rather than he was actually the best player, because he wasn't the best player in the tournament. Scraped only a league title, lost in an FA Cup final to Manchester United. So then you look at what Real Madrid, they won a league. Vinicius was important to that. They won a Champions League. Vinicius was definitely important to that. So in those key, Vinicius was involved in those key moments. So how could you not then give that player the Ballon d'Or? But that's an argument for another day. So it was all farcical.
It's farcical. It's absolutely farcical. It's absolutely true.
That's what when people say, that's what, like I said. And here's the thing, I wasn't even too, and what Real Madrid that did was wrong, I give it to him. But I wasn't even too mad, because when you look at it, I'm like, hold on. I'm like, hold, you're giving it to him?
Yeah, no, facts. Bro, I supported it. I supported it 100.
Yes, I was all for. I mean, I first wouldn't have done it, but I was all for. Well, yeah, of course they have every right to be aggrieved by that decision.
Facts. If I'm president, if I'm the president as well, I'm calling him saying, "Don't even think about getting on the plane, mate."
Yeah, don't get on that plane.
Hell no.
I told the pilot go home for the day.
Yeah, go away, man. I'll pay you for your day, man. Go away. No, bro. What are you talking about? What are you flying there for? To go and just clap this guy that doesn't know? Hell no. So,
and also, and even to add to that, like, because obviously, like I said, I've never seen. Obviously, you can see like Rodri since then, and obviously, Rodri is a phenomenal midfielder, right? But I'll say a few things because you can see like even since then, Rodri has been doing so many interviews since then with his Balon d'Or there, and I was like, I've never seen any Balon d'Or winner conduct the amount of interviews, him talking as much as he is, or even going to do his interview with a Balon d'Or award. Usually, when people do the Balon d'Ors at home, they go do their interview. I've never seen people have it beside them for certain interviews. But I've always said this is where I think Balon d'Or needs to properly change and adapt. Because I think ultimately you need to give people credits in their position. And this will stop this all. So what I think they should do is you have an overall Balon d'Or award winner for whoever's been the best player in the year. And that's just based upon their performance and what they've achieved. Then you should have then separate ones for positions. Because then that rids the argument, he's a better player than the other. Because obviously Vinicius is a far better player when you look at his overall skill sets than Rodri. Rodri can't do the things Vinicius did. So then you should have a Ballon d'Or award for a striker, one for midfielder, one for a defender. I don't know how you do goalkeepers because at the moment they measure goalkeepers by clean sheets, which I think is a terrible reflection because if you have a great defense, I think clean sheets are more reflective of defense because if you have a great defense, a keeper may have nothing to do all game. Yeah. A keeper may one simple save in a game for 5 games in a row. And they'll say, he's the best goalkeeper in all because he had the most clean sheets. I'm like, no. How you judge it, I don't know. Maybe it's based upon the number of saves they make, number of key saves they make. I don't know how you do it. But I think if you kind of do it that way, you have one overall winner, you have an award there for a striker, award there for midfielder, award for a defender. Then you acknowledge each player or each best player in the position and maybe one for a goalkeeper, how you measure that, I don't know. Then you kind of acknowledge each best player in their position, and then you don't have to start comparing midfielders to strikers or midfielders to creative DMs to creative midfielders or a defender to strikers. You have people saying, certain defenders should win it.
Yeah.
So that way you kind of have one overall winner, then you have one for each position, and then you have maybe 5 awards and you have 5 winners. And then you can even have the overall winner also winning it for their position. I may win it for being a forward, but also an overall winner. And I think that way you then rid the argument of what we saw with Rodri and Vinicius. Because Rodri, for me, was important in his position, but for me, definitely wasn't the best player in world football at that time. But then you can acknowledge him for how important how good he was in that position by having a Ballon d'Or award for midfielder.
Yeah, fair. No, that's fair. And I actually like that idea. That'll be like maybe 4 winners. Goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, forward, and then the overall winner. Yeah, no, I like that idea actually, but they'll never do that.
Yeah. and the reason I say that is because when you look over the years, there's so many players in the positions that are just not appreciated. And I thought about it because I remember I see on Twitter people be rubbishing the likes of Rio Ferdinand's name just because they don't like an opinion he makes, and then it wasn't as good or was he really that good? And I was like, no, but I was like. Is this new generation that can say that? Whereas if there was an award to acknowledge defenders, midfielders, then you rid that rubbish away because then when you show, you can say, 3-time defender Ballon d'Or winner. No one can speak on their name. Yeah. No one can speak on these guys. Because sometimes the way people rubbish some of the players in the past, especially this new generation on social, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys haven't got a clue.
They haven't got a clue at all. They haven't got a clue. Wait, I'm not gonna get involved. I'm just gonna start ranting. It's okay. So we're about to do an hour. It's okay. But yeah, that should be that. We've got Premier League this weekend, and then am I right? It's an international break, or we got another game?
Yeah, it's international break after. Sadly,
bloody hell,
sad times.
Yeah. Well, we've got some podcast ideas lined up for you guys, so just keep up with style of play. As Theo says. The statistics are doing great, but the one statistic that you guys are not helping us on is the subscribers. So hit that subscribe button, hit a like for us, and we'll keep this thing going for you guys. But other than that, Basil, anything to plug, or are we all good?
No, we're all good. Yeah, just plug in Arsenal to win the Champions League this season. That's the only thing I'm plugging. So be there wherever. Where's the final, by the way? I need to start booking my tickets.
I can't remember. But, yeah, enjoy PSV, because when you meet one of the Madrids, yeah, sorry man, that dream dies. But but yeah, as for my dream, if we don't be social, then I have no dreams left. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. But like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you on the next episode. Have a good day and peace.
Perfect.
Gosh. Oh, and Glazer's out.